Alrighty, so today we're doing the Patreon voted drawn out. And what the patrons voted on was for me to draw human versions of Joycons. It was just an idea I had. And at first, actually, I had thought about doing like six of them. A pair of characters representing each of like the default color options you can get. So like, you know, they're the gray ones, and then that red and blue, and then purple and yellow and whatever. But then I decided that it was quantity over quality there, and that wasn't it, you know? It's like, you know, there's no good reason to do so many characters, because that would also be like, if I'm right, and that is 6, that's 12 characters, and yeah. So, instead we're just doing one pair, and like, theoretically they could, you know, swap out the colors themselves, because they are the Joy-Cons, and they can be whatever color you have. Let me know what color Joy-Cons you got, by the way. Something you may have noticed is that I've given them funny looking ears. What I'm doing is, I decided to kind of make them like androids, and so, of course, I took inspiration from Chobits. Chobits is a classic manga and anime, and it's got androids in it, and I love the way how they have the androids have, like, funny ears. No better way to describe it. So I decided to gank that idea, because I think it translates really well. It looks, like, close enough to human, but still clearly mechanical. You may have noticed also, by the way, I decided to go with like a pop idol, like, vibe for them. Don't know why, it's just how it happened. It just felt right. I don't know. Just any good excuse to draw some cute outfits for some cute girls. Might as well take it, right? Details that I think are interesting to note currently in the design include that, so I've given them headbands, and that represents like the Z buttons, like ZL and ZR on the top of the Joy-Cons. That's exciting. And also, you may have noticed that the one on the left has like a circular element on her glove right there, and the one on the right has that same circular element on her ankle, like on the boot. Those are representing the analog sticks. This is such a fun idea. And this was the thing. By only doing 2 characters like this, I was able to allow myself to put more thought into the small details like that, as opposed to just like kind of rushing through 17 million different characters instead, you know? You probably noticed that I gave them hairpins representing the plus and minus buttons, which is so fun. Also, the buttons on their, like, vests, those are gonna become the D-pad, and, like, then the A, B, Y, and X buttons. This is too fun. I'm having a great time. I guess I want to mention the line art, because it's a lot thicker than you may have noticed. That it's a lot thicker than I usually do it. And yeah, I wanted thick line art. I was just in a thick line art mood, and I'm actually using a brush that's different than the one I usually do for line art. So for basically everything you've seen me illustrate ever so far, I've used the pencil tool, but for this one I decided to go with the G pen, because it can like taper really easily, and it's nice. I guess a helpful tip is to not be afraid to use different brushes sometimes, because it might work out. I do suggest doing like a test run though, like on just a blank sheet, like a blank page, testing out different brushes and seeing how they interact, because you definitely don't want to be like a good portion of the way through a picture, decide to test out a brush, and then very suddenly learn that it interacts with other brushes in a weird way that you didn't expect, and now it's a whole new process and more difficult than you expected. But yeah, you know, just test things out, because sometimes you might find that you really like a brush. And I do really like this one. I do like how the line density can so easily vary, and that it looks nice. Just just a nice looking brush. Let me know also. I can't ever figure out how I feel about thick lines versus thin lines. Because I feel like I had really latched on to really thin line art. But then, very suddenly, I realized that thick lines look really good too, and now I just don't know. I guess, like everything in art, there's a good function for each, you know? Neither of them are worthless, neither of them are inherently better than the other. But yeah, let me know what you think about line thickness. You absolutely noticed this, but I've given them little belts with the home button, and also I think it's the take a picture button on the left Joy-Con. This was what made this art challenge fun. Because when I did sketch out, like, the 6 different pairs. And then, but I wasn't feeling it, so I kind of put that aside for the day, and I decided to come back to the drawn out when I was more in the mood for this. And while I was, like, ruminating on, like, okay, how do I, you know, kind of get myself invested? Because if you're not interested in the thing you've decided to draw, well, art should be fun. So clearly something's missing, or something is wrong, and you gotta figure out how to make it still sound fun, you know? And so I was like, okay, so how do I get myself invested in this Joy-Con adventure? And I was like, well, let's be honest, the only design you had thought of so far, I talked to myself in the third person, I guess, the only design you had thought of so far was this idle sort of concept. So maybe you don't need to draw 3 million characters. And I was like, yeah, you're right, self. And then also I was like, and then also you can kind of narrow your focus and make 2 really good designs as opposed to 7 fine designs. And so yeah, you know, this should be, it feels like an obvious piece of advice to give, but I think it is still worth mentioning. So that, you know, it's okay to reassess your picture, and it's okay to do it differently than you originally planned to do. There's nothing wrong with learning from your mistakes and acknowledging that something isn't working out, so you can just change what you're doing. Because you're in charge. It's your picture. So you get to rule the world here. Another fun element that we're gonna see about their designs really soon here is their hair. So I've given them these very big, poofy ponytails, and they're really fun. And so they fade to black, like at the tips, because I wanted their hair to represent the triggers on the back of the Joy-Cons, like, you know, the L trigger and the R trigger, and that's so exciting. That's the tiniest of details that I'm excited about. Also, all these green elements, like on their ear pieces and their eyes and on their necklaces. You may think that it's just like, you know, generic power button, but actually I decided to go with that because Joy-Cons, like, when you activate them, like when you undock them, then they have that, like, light up green little situation on the side. Like, that's the sign that the Switch has found them, that they have those little green lights. And I was happy that I was able to figure out a way to kind of incorporate that, because that was such a cute idea. And also because that means that their eyes get to be different color than their hair, which I didn't really want to do. That's a totally fine sort of look to go for, like a hair and eye all the same color. But personally, I like to make the eyes pop. But that's just me. Also, something you may have noticed is that, kind of with the faces, I just wanted to go with a slightly more retro look, which I'm suddenly remembering. So previously in my life, I've drawn Hatsune Miku. This isn't a drawn out, like you can't find this, but I've drawn outfits for Hatsune Miku where I designed her around a bunch of different video game consoles, so like the PlayStation 5, I think I did the Switch as well, the Dreamcast. It was a very fun art project. And I'm realizing, just like very suddenly, that that I seem to have a very consistent aesthetic when it comes to video game androids. Because, you know, Hatsune Miku she's a Lloyd. She's a Vocaloid. That's like an android. And And so for that one as well, I wanted to kind of roll with a retro anime aesthetic, you know? What does that say about me? I guess I just like retro robot anime girls. I think I do a fine job emulating that retro look I was kind of trying to go for. I definitely could have pushed it more. I think honestly, a grainy sort of texture over the picture would have pushed that idea. But I'm fine. I'm fine with it. I think this is very fun. I think their faces are very cute, actually. I might just incorporate some elements, like how I did their noses, into art more often. That's another thing, of course. Always don't be afraid to just... Don't feel like you have to always draw one way, you know? If it's like, oh, well, I don't do eyes like, you know, whatever. And it's like, well, you can draw eyes in a million different ways. So yeah, don't feel beholden to always drawing everything the same way every time, you know? Background. So this is a very bright background I've decided to go with, and what it is it's Nintendo. Duh. You know, it's the Nintendo red, and then the white elements. It is actually a darker red than I think Nintendo uses, but that really bright red, it was just kind of a lot. It was an awful lot to just suddenly take in. It was a little aggressive. So, yeah, definitely a brighter background than I usually go for, but I think it's fun. And I think these girls are super fun. And yeah, so I'm glad that I was able to find a way to do this art project and still be happy with the end result. Because when I first started and I wasn't really feeling it, it was a real drag. So it's nice that I was able to bring it back around and have a product that I'm super happy with. So yeah, have a great day!